This section shows us Lancelot doing a great many more deeds of daring do. We find that he is the son of Ban of Benwick, and that he goes up against Tarquin first, and he defeats Tarquin. And Tarquin first says, "You're a powerful knight, and I would really love to be a comrade in arms of yours, because you're that powerful." And Lancelot says, "Sure, of course. Is there?" And Tarquin says, "As long as you're not one knight in particular, and that's Lancelot. If you're Lancelot de Lac, I don't want to be your brother. I don't want to be your comrade in arms." And Lancelot says, "Well, surprise, I'm Lancelot, and so we have to fight to the death." And they do, and he kills Tarquin. And afterwards, after he has done so, he gets great praise from the various knights, one of whom says, "You're the greatest knight I've ever seen. This is fantastic what you do." And a lot of what we see in these stories, this rivalry and this fighting that occurs and these great deeds that Lancelot does, are the struggles of this one man, this Lancelot character, to gain fame and greatness. But on the other hand, there are also struggles that show just what kind of a man he is. He's a very good man, a very noble man, but a man who strives for great things. And we see that striving for great things and nobility, which is natural in men, Mallory ends up being somewhat critical of in this story. We think that striving for great things is what makes the Table of Camelot. But we find that that's insufficient in Mallory's story. For instance, Lancelot is riding on after killing Tarquin. He rides on with the damosel, who is Elaine, the daughter of Bagdemagus. And she says to him, "Would you not want to take a wife?" Hint, hint, mainly me. And Lancelot says, "No, I don't want to take a wife. I don't want to get married. I don't want to settle down, because the minute I settle down, I have to give up jousting and chivalry and all this daring do and fighting and all those things that a man loves to do. And I also don't want to be a paramour. I don't want to go from one woman to the next. And if I get married, that's what I have to do. I couldn't be true to one woman." And doing such a thing, as he points out, would exhaust him, tire him, take him away from the feats of daring do and greatness that he strives for. Oddly enough, too, right after saying that he doesn't want to get married, he comes to a castle. He splits up from Elaine, and then he comes to a castle. And at the end of the section, all the people in the windows are talking to him out of the windows of the castle, and they say, "You are unhappy." And it's quite striking that here is a man who's striving for such greatness, and yet the whole time is a miserable son of a gun. He's unhappy. He's not really happy at all. He's just striving for greatness, but he doesn't have happiness. If we want to develop the character of Lancelot here, this is a great section to look at, because what we see in him as a character is a man who wants greatness, and he wants honor, and he wants nobility. What he doesn't want is just a normal life. He doesn't want to live the life that most people live, which is the life of finding someone, falling in love, making a family. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to do great things and marvelous things and strive for the best, climb every mountain. Mallory seems to be almost critical of that. And we see that criticism coming out in little bits here and there, like, for instance, Elaine's nudging him and saying, "You don't want a wife. You want to do great deeds. Well, I'll go my own way." And she kind of leaves, and so he kind of loses the grail, so to speak, loses the possibility of having this beautiful young lady become his wife. Further on, Lancelot does other great deeds of daring do. He frees, for instance, he kills some giants, and he frees this castle of Tintagel. Tintagel, it ends up, is the castle of Igraine, and the Duke of Tintagel, who was killed by Uther. And then Uther gat on Igraine the child Arthur. And so Lancelot frees the castle, which was originally associated with the birth of Arthur. And he kills these two giants that have been imprisoned the people of Tintagel. Well, this not only connects the story of Lancelot back to Arthur, it also shows us again that twofold imagery that showed up before, with the two castles originally, and that series of pairs that of two and two and two that has come up in the work prior to this. In other stories of daring do, he frees all of the knights at one point from Tarquin's prisons, and all the knights come out and say, "You are the greatest knight. You're just wonderful. You're an incredible knight," and they all praise him. And he's the greatest knight in all the world, they say. But all of them are judging greatness as doing great acts of honor and valor and strength. Malory again seems to be almost critical of that, and he seems to suggest almost that greatness is not just doing great acts of valor and strength. It raises a question, I think, that Malory is very subtle in asking here. Do we judge the greatness of any human being by the physicality of their life, what they do physically in life in terms of strength and power? Or is greatness located somewhere else? Is greatness located in recognizing in the normal and the everyday things of beauty and loveliness? Is greatness found in being chivalrous to women? Or is greatness found in protecting the weak? Or is greatness found in simply being humble in the face of the immensity of life? Malory suggests that greatness might be located in those areas, and that thesis, that idea, is developed later on in the story. Another instance in this section is the saving of Sir Kai, and Lancelot, who's asleep, sees Sir Kai being attacked by 3 other knights, and he goes out. He says the injustice of this is tremendous, so he jumps out the window and he goes and he defends Kai, and he beats the 3 other knights, and he says, "Go and tell Guinevere that you have been defeated by Kai, and go to the court and put yourself under her control." And this is the first of several different instances of this. He seems to defeat character after character and sends them off to Guinevere. And you can imagine Guinevere getting, people coming to her and saying, "I put myself under your control because of Kai." And Guinevere sort of, thanks, I guess. But Lancelot is building up his reputation not with other knights only, but also with Guinevere too, because he wants the greatest and best thing available. He wants the woman who is queen, Guinevere herself, the most beautiful woman in the court. And in order to win her heart, he's showing her how many great deeds he's capable of doing, with the idea that she'll fall in love with the greatness that he shows to her. In a way, his putting himself under the guise of Kai here is like the Tristram wooing Isolde for Mark, or like Gawain wooing Ettarde for Peleus. It's a similar thing. He is wooing Guinevere through the character of Kai, through this disguise, this hiddenness. And he does it explicitly in one part here, where he puts on the armor of Kai, and he goes out and does all this great stuff and sends people off to Guinevere thinking that it was Kai who did it. Well, part of what Lancelot seems to be erring in here is that he keeps thinking that it's power that's going to win over this wonderful position for him, and this greatness for him, and this honor for him. And he's going to be able to rise meteorically to the top, and he's going to be the beloved of the queen. And he forgets that she's already married. She already has a husband. Some commentators have said, well, that was no big deal in the medieval era. Of course, we had Eleanor of Aquitaine, for instance, the queen of France, who had paramours frequently. And she was a very powerful lady, and many of the troubadours who wrote for her courts praised the ability of the queen to have different paramours and not be true to her husband Louis or to her husband Henry later. But I think Malory, is writing later than that, is in some ways being critical of that idea. He seems almost to be suggesting that the presence of Arthur is itself a hindrance. It's a hindrance that Lancelot's not taking into consideration. Notice that we've shifted the whole story away from Arthur to Lancelot. And so in some ways, Lancelot, in the rhetoric of the story, has become a second Arthur, trying to be like the greatest knight, trying to be the king himself, trying to even get the woman that's married to the king. And in this striving for greatness and glory and honor and chivalric magnificence, he seems to be missing the point to a great degree. And I really think this is the tragedy of the story. The tragedy of the story that Malory seems to hint at is how often, men especially, how often people want greatness and glory and power, and they end up missing what's right in front of them. The beauty of a simple life, or the beauty of having friends, or the beauty of just being normal, being average. For Lancelot, being average is not sufficient. He doesn't want to settle down at all. And consequently, he's always striving for something greater and something greater and something greater.